Hi, I'm Michael Apple for BizNews.com. I'm in discussion with Ian Cameron. He's the director of Action Society. Before we get into why exactly we're speaking to you, Ian, by way of background, who are you and what is Action Society?
Thanks, Michael. You're correct. I'm Ian Cameron. I'm the Director of Community Safety at Action Society. My background is community policing. That's what I've been doing for the past just over 10 years, and with a predominant focus on how we can mobilize communities against crime in South Africa. The new model that I've been working on with Action Society is an oversight, and we call it the Action Center model. And we developed this after the murder of a young lady called Sipukazi Boy in Mbekweni, just outside Paarl in the Western Cape. When she was murdered, she was dismembered, and then she was set alight in a trolley bin at the end of 2021. It's really a horrific case. And we just said we need a model of oversight to ensure decent conviction. And that's when we developed the model. We ended up getting quite a few donors and sponsors getting involved. And they said, let's appoint an entire team of ex-detectives, investigators, prosecutors, etc., to get involved, which we've done. And obviously, since then, we've received many cases, interestingly enough, from places like Gugulethu, Kalicha, etc., where we've now helped not only with the court process, but even with the investigation. And it's heartwarming to see how grassroots police members are also really receiving the help in a positive sense, and how they're not getting too involved in politics. Nevertheless, the Sipukazi Boy case gave birth to this whole model, and we've piloted it in the Western Cape, but it is something that we're looking at developing elsewhere. We do have a few cases in Gauteng already, but not as many as in the Western Cape, but it is something that we would like to do nationally.
I mean, the last time you and I spoke was, I think it was a couple of years ago, maybe. It was after a horrendous case of yet another farm murder in South Africa. So you are no stranger to violence and death that this country brings on a platter on a daily basis. Now, let's get to why exactly we're speaking. And that's, you're all over the internet for being the guy who made Police Minister Bheki Cele lose his mind at a community meeting in the Western Cape. In your own words, how did that whole ordeal unfold?
So what happened was basically the following. On Monday evening, I received a message that there will be a community engagement session in Gugulethu. And all my cards on the table. We don't have many members in Gugulethu. We also don't have many cases there. I think we've got 2 or 3, if I'm not mistaken. So we've done more work in Khayelitsha and the rest of Mitchell's Plain. But nevertheless, I thought it's a good idea to attend because the last few sessions of this kind really seemed like a bit of a sugar-coated approach from the minister to make it seem as though they really are involved on ground level, but the changes still don't happen. We still continue to see these horrific things. Now, it's important to mention that between Khayelitsha and Gugulethu, almost 60 people were shot and killed in the last 6-7 months in supposed mass shootings, and it took the police almost 7 months to arrest one of the culprits. So, not even mentioning the rest. So, and I'm not even speaking of the individual murders. Anyway, so that's why we attended. Obviously, we focused on GBV more, but I was astounded when Minister Cele showed up with a 6-vehicle motorcade with bodyguards, etc. And I'm sorry, but it just feels very unfair and arrogant, especially in a community like that where people really don't have any form of real protection. And when he started
It's the
speaking,
optics, Ian? It's the optics of
yeah,
it.
exactly. And so he started speaking, and he made a few political comments about provincial government, local government, etc. And look, I'm not there to fight the battle on behalf of anyone, but what I know is that I've spent time with both SAPS members and local law enforcement members that fall under provincial government and, for example, City of Cape Town. And in all 3 different institutions, there are great people, and they all put their lives on the line every day to protect people, and they don't have good leadership or resources, especially not in a SAPS capacity. The rest are actually all right. But he then said something that really upset me, and he said that SAPS is the only constitutionally mandated body, and that there should be no parallel structures. And I just thought to myself, so yeah, you are failing your own constitutional mandate, and now you are making this a political discussion about whether devolution should happen or not, and you're making it a political discussion about provincial government issues, instead of focusing on the problem at hand. I mean, what has he done to implement what has been suggested in the Kailicha Commission report years ago? What has he done regarding that? Little or nothing, you know. So nevertheless, I waited my turn. There were 10 speakers in the first round after he had spoken, and then I was the third one in the second round, so I was the 13th speaker.
James. She was murdered on the 8th of May in Kailicha. She was stabbed 100 meters from where 6 other people were shot 5 minutes earlier. No one followed up that case. We did, because her sister asked us to help. Do you know where we found the suspect? In the Eastern Cape. We brought him back. He is now being detained in Kailicha. We do that because we care for the community. We patrol for them. We give them training. I don't see you doing the same, sir. And I'm tired of the excuses, and I'm tired of you making this a political thing. None of these people tonight, when they see their neighbors being slaughtered on the streets, worry about your nonsense comments about the Constitution and about devolution. They worry about surviving, sir. And I would like to end off with this. I want to graciously invite you to come and patrol without a bodyguard, without a grand car, in normal clothes with this community tonight, to get the sewage on your shoes that they patrol through. You have a problem, Mr. Minister, because you are removed from reality that the rest of us face. When I visit Mbekweni, I get out of my car and a 3-year-old little boy is taking a poo next to the road because he doesn't have a toilet. And you know what? Police don't care if something happens to them there because they don't have the resources to help.
And I started off by just saying that you know, who we are, what we do. And then I said to him, Minister, I honestly think you are separated from the reality that the majority of us face. And I challenge you to come and patrol in that community, to walk through the same sewage that the brave ladies there walk through every night when they patrol with no protection. And I challenge you to come there without your bodyguards and your motorcade. And obviously, I was worked up about it because of the way that he entered there. But nevertheless, I stated a few facts about the fact that detectives are ill-equipped and are still constable detectives being expected to sort out serious domestic violence cases, etc.
When I go to the different gender-based violence desks at these police stations, especially in the Nyanga cluster or traditional Nyanga cluster, the majority of the detectives have more than 300 dockets on their table. 300 dockets! How do you think you can do an investigation with 300 dockets? It's impossible. And then, the cherry on top, and this is my conclusion, is that many of those detectives have 300 dockets, and it's a constable detective. He just came out of the college. He doesn't even know how to spell J88. You expect him to solve the problem.
And he then, you know, just stared at me and obviously kept quiet. And then a few people after me spoke. Now, when he concluded and he did the concluding remarks, he spoke and made a lot of jokes with the people. And then suddenly he pointed at me and he started saying that, you know, I think of him as a garden boy. And he gave all his credentials about being a freedom fighter, etc. Now, I'm firstly not going to get involved in a race debate with him. And secondly, there's a time and a place for everything. I'll respect his credentials 100%. But the point is, 67 people are murdered on average every day in South Africa. And it's around 120 to 150 women are raped every day. And those are just the ones that are reported. and he's not solving that, and that's my fight. So when he accused me of racism or insinuated that, I stood up and I said, I will not stand for that.
I sat here and listened to you talking nonsense. Listen, it's not time to listen. Sit down and listen, my man.
You will not say something like that. And then he told me to shut up and sit down. And I said, no, you can shut up, and which might have been wrong of me, but I just said, I'm not going to stand back, and I'm not going to let you speak to me in a derogatory way. I don't mind robust debate. He can even be emotional. He can even shout. It's also fine. But insinuating that I'm, for example, racist is absolute nonsense. And I then just stood my ground, and then he told me I need to leave, and I said no. And then the next moment, a really big cop came and grabbed me and carried me out of the room, which was quite remarkable.
I'm not cleaning my jacket. Let me go. Why are you doing this? I didn't do anything. He shouted at me and I didn't want to sit down. I didn't.
Okay.
Leave me alone. I will leave.
It's the first time ever that my elbows managed to touch each other behind my back. So I'm making a joke of it, but it is a serious matter, and I think it's actually a very sad day for policing in South Africa, because I think the police are being abused for political ideals, and it's become a bit of an iron fist for the political elite.
Yeah, and of course, you're an ardent critic of Mr. Cele. Perhaps he knows the name Ian Cameron. Do you think he's fit to be police minister? And if not, and I hate to prejudge your answer, but if not, why not?
Yeah, obviously, I think he's unfit to be the minister.
Cele is making this a political issue. He talks about partnerships. Not the provincial government, not the other NGOs that work in the area, or even the city was invited to this. We are a different NGO working in the region with gender-based violence. We represent many victims in this area. Just this morning we were in court again. Then he comes and he starts speaking about freedom fighting, and he speaks about political issues, while 153 women will be raped in South Africa today. While 67 people will be murdered in South Africa today. While in this area alone, along with Khayelitsha, more than 50 people have been shot in mass shootings in less than 7 months. And he wants to come and talk politics.
He failed as national commissioner as well. He was appointed just because of being politically connected, not because of experience. I find it laughable that some people still call him general. And to me, it's simple: merit appointments. I can't tell for example, a forensic expert exactly how to do their job. I understand some of the processes because I might have studied it, and I understand it from an oversight point of view. But he is not a career cop. He has got no qualification whatsoever. So why is he the Minister of Police? I really believe the way that he's been appointed was to protect certain political elite, and I'm going out on a limb here, but I stand to be corrected, and I think he's unfit for the position. The other interesting thing is that since Nathi Mthethwa was was Minister of Police, think of him, we think of Nathi Nhleko, we think of Fikile Mbalula. We haven't really had one minister that didn't make some kind of, I don't know, scandal or had some dark cloud of suspicious behavior hanging over them somewhere, somehow.
A minister is an elected official. It is not someone that can treat community members like rubbish. He's standing there laughing, making jokes, while tonight someone will be shot dead in this community. So I'm tired of hearing political excuses and political stories while ordinary South Africans are being killed throughout the country. Remember that. Today, 67 people will be murdered in South Africa. Tomorrow, another 67.
How can we expect ground level policing to be successful if we can't even manage that? So yeah, answer short and sweet: no, he's an incompetent minister.
As you say, the statistics are horrendous. 67 murders a day, between 120 to 150 women will be raped today. You've made the point before that that's worse than a lot of war zones around the world.
Absolutely. I mean, thousands of people are killed annually in South Africa. I think our murder rate will probably in the next 12 months be the highest that it's ever been. It should go over 23, even 24,000, if not more, people per year. And our murder is quite accurately reported. The last survey I saw, it's about 96% reported. It's alarming to imagine that a murder isn't reported in some cases, but nevertheless, we've got a very serious crime pandemic. I'd like to give you an example. I was in Kailicha the other day in an area called Taiwan, and it's dire. It really, people struggle there. And whilst I was there, we got a mandate from a family of a victim that was killed by her partner there in May, and literally, I mean, Michael, we spent probably 20 minutes with her, with two of my colleagues. And when we were driving out on exactly the same road, someone had been shot at point blank right there in the middle of the day on the sidewalk. And the remarkable thing was that most of the cops were sitting in their cars. And I got out with two of my colleagues, which are both female, and we started chatting to the people and so on. And I spoke to one of the community members standing there. I said, "What happened?" He said, "No, two guys walked up. They just shot him point blank, back of the head. It must have been a hit." But it's so like nonchalant, you know. Some of the kids were standing there playing around, playing touches and whatever. And there's a dead body with half a head left lying on the ground. And you know, that is the reality of so many places in South Africa. And then we have a minister that would like to keep on quoting historical credentials while people are being killed at this rate. And that's where I refuse to make it a race or a culture discussion.
I didn't come here this morning as a white man. I came here this morning as a concerned citizen representing many women that have been raped and murdered here. I think of Nosipiwe James. I think of someone like Sipukazi Boy. Sipukazi was dismembered, her arms and her legs cut off. There was no 72-hour intervention plan by Cele then. There was no Imbizo. She was burnt in a trolley bin. And the same with Nosipiwe James. She was stabbed, no task team appointed. It took public organizations along with station members that are ill-resourced to go and make that arrest. So this is not a political issue, it's a crime issue. And he needs to stop walking around in the Western Cape making everything about politics. I don't care about the DA, I don't care about the ANC. People will be murdered here tonight, tomorrow.
I go to these places daily, I see what happens to people, and I think we need to call it out. And we also need to make sure we don't place certain politicians on pedestals, because it sometimes feels like, you know, I've been told you disrespected a whole minister. That's literally what some people said to me this morning. And I said to them, I'm sorry, I just stated facts and I spoke honestly. If you don't like it, it's fine. You can differ from me by all means. But I'm tired of having to have soft discussions and to pussyfoot around someone that blatantly not only lies to the public, but literally doesn't do his job and is failing and is literally causing for more people to die.
Ian, while I've got you, you've also had a look at the DNA backlog issue, is that correct? What's that about?
That's correct. Yeah, so over the past probably a year, there's been a lot of alarming data showing us that there's a tremendous backlog in terms of DNA processing in the police. By the forensic science laboratories. In May, the last stat that I saw was the backlog was around 56,000 cases. Last year, in more or less the same time period, was at 300,000. To give you an idea, it's about 4 pieces of evidence per case that I was told that need to be processed. You've got, at that stage, more than 1 million pieces of evidence that had to be processed. This is quite challenging because at that stage, especially, the police failed to pay the system provider for their PChem system. So they had no way of really referencing or storing some of the evidence that was processed, which made it even worse. But anyway, the point is that they ring-fenced that 300,000 that then became 56,000 in May. And the long and the short of it is it's still not solved. There are more cases coming in every single day. we have a shortage of not only capacity but also capability in terms of competence in the police. There are still many good people left, but I think they are under severe pressure. And the DNA backlog basically means that rapists and murderers do what they do for even longer because there's no way of linking them to a crime. Chantal Makwena was dismembered and raped as a 2 or 3 year old little girl in Rocklands in the Eastern Cape. She was left in a pit toilet, and it took 2 years for the DNA processing to be done in order to link her rapist and killer to her murder. And that because of the DNA backlog. So the system is failing people, and it's denying justice to innocent children.
Sure. Yeah, Ian, what does one ask after something like that? But okay. You're meeting with your legal team to decide on a way forward regarding yesterday?
Yeah, so we actually had a meeting this morning. We decided not to meet yesterday just to have everyone calm down first in order to just be sensible about it. We're definitely going to lay a complaint with IPID about the police's behavior yesterday. I think Cele did more damage to his own reputation than what he did to mine yesterday. And therefore there's not much in terms of me personally that I'll be doing. To me, it's about the other victims. So let that be. We will also be considering steps in terms of the ethics committee for parliamentarians and ministers and their code of ethics. So we'll be checking that as well. And then we are considering criminal charges against some of the police members that attempted to assault me. It's more about the fact that they could have been actually doing real crime prevention instead of doing that. And it was horrendous to see that it took 5 police members. The next moment, it was quite funny. You can't see it on the one. I think there's only one clip showing it. Literally TRT members storming in with R5s. My goodness. And they could actually be fighting serious crime at that stage. I posed no threat to anyone. And the way that I was handled is unacceptable. So that's more or less what we're going to do. We'll probably release something later today that just clarifies all the points nicely.
Facts and freedom of speech can be a dangerous weapon, Ian, didn't you know?
Absolutely. I obviously discovered that or rediscovered that again yesterday, but we won't be sitting back, Michael. I think everything that we've said relates to the large majority of people in South Africa, and we need to say that South Africans are good people. I think there's a misperception created by certain political groups and figures that there's this polarization, but they do that for political ideals. When I went to Gugulethu yesterday, I saw the majority of people being good people, welcoming people, people that wanted to look after me and protect me despite what was happening. So I think we need to share that, and we need to tell people that the things that people like Cele say or says isn't what the majority feels, and it doesn't, it's kind of that hashtag not in my name type of thing, where we need to be more outspoken, and we need to state the facts. We can't stand back from that.
I want to finish off by telling you what Helen Zille, take it from where it comes, wrote about yesterday's drama. Quote, "Good for you, Ian Cameron. Stand firm. Strangely enough, when Bheki Cele has you arrested, you generally know you're doing the right thing." Thanks for your time, Ian.
Thank you very much, Michael. Have a good one.